Okay, I'm live streaming now again, and let's see if we can get
Especially since we
through.
were talking about,
Harsh, it's just started.
especially since we were talking Yosy, that's why.
Okay, okay, here we go.
I know,
Hopefully we have
I
good
know.
reception now. Let me plug into
Okay,
power
I'm
this
just
way.
kidding.
Okay,
Okay, we're back
so
live.
we started learning about what the order of
Are you going to
operations
start again
is.
or what?
I'm going to do a summary. We started the order of operation is when we have a Matzoi Shabbos that goes into Yom Tov like we have this year. And we said that Rav holds it's Yaknaha, Yain Kiddush Ner Avdallah, and Shmuel holds Yain Ner Avdallah Kiddush. So the primary machlokes between Rav and Shmuel is what's appropriate to do first. Should you do the Kiddush first because it's the Kedusha, and doing Avdallah first seems to indicate that we're trying to get away from Shabbos? Or is it more appropriate to do the Havdalah first? Because if the kid's by you, first you walk him out and you escort him until he's completely gone. And only then do you divert your attention to the minister, which is the Yom Tov as compared to the minister versus Shabbos as compared to the Melech. Rabbi Omar, Yain Havdalah Ner Kiddush. So first of all, you see he holds Havdalah should be before Kiddush, which is like Shmuel said. He also holds the Yain should be first because Yain is Todir V'Shei Todir Todir Kaidim. What he holds differently is that instead of the Ner being before the Havdalah, the Ner is after the Havdalah, because he wants there to be a separation between the Havdalah and the Kiddush. The Levi Amar Kiniya. So first Kiddush, then Ner, then Yayin, then Havdalah. Again, he holds Kiddush should be first, like Rav. The Yayin, he wants to be right near the Havdalah. The Rashbam tells us because Havdalah can only be ala Yayin, while Kiddush can also be ala Pas. So therefore, he wants it to be clear that the Yayin is connected to the Havdalah, and that's why he put them there first. So it should sort of be a mafsik between the Kiddush and the Yayin, so the Yayin should be closest to the Havdalah. Rabbanan Amri, Kina, Kiddush, Yayin, there Havdalah. The old Kiddush should be first, and then you have the normal order of Havdalah, Yain, Ner Havdalah. And the reason why the Yain is after the Kiddush, once again, is to create a separation between the Kiddush and the Havdalah. But he didn't require the Yud. He didn't require that the Yain should be right at the Havdalah. He was happy if even if the Yain is after Kiddush, we should follow the normal Seder of Havdalah at that point. Ma'abed Ravina Amar Ner Kiddush Yain Havdalah. The Ner is first because when you walk into a room, the first thing you see, the first thing you have enough from is the Ner. Kiddush is first, like Rav, and then you have Yain near the Havdalah because we want to show that Havdalah is al Yain. Mar Shama Shmei Rabbi Shua, Ner Yain Havdalah Kiddush. Again, Ner is first for the same reason as before. Yain and Havdalah is because Havdalah comes first and then comes Kiddush. Shalach lei Avua the Shmuel. L'Rabbi Yom Beni Rabbeinu Seder Havdalah Seich. What is the right order? Shalach lei send them back. Kach Omar Rabbi Shmuel by Rabbi Yosy Sh'Omar Mishum Aviv Sh'Omar Mishum Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. It's Ner Havdalah Yain and Kiddush. And why do we have the Havdalah before the Kiddush? Amar Chanina Mashal the Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya Lamelach Shiyotze. A king who is leaving. Va'aparchas nichnas and the minister is coming. So Malavinis HaMelech ve'achach yotzim likras aparchas. My Havdalah. So what is the maskona? What do we do? Abai Omar Yain Kiddush Shechianu Ner Havdalah. Rav Omar Yain Kiddush Ner Havdalah Zman, which is what we do. Ve'ilchas HaKarava. Tosfos asks, why do you need to say Hilchas HaKarava? Don't we know that the halacha when there's a machlekes Abai and Rava is always like Rava, except for Yal Kagam, except for 6 cases? And that says Tosfos that you're right. We don't need to say Hilchas Rava L'gabe Abaye, but Rava's order is a subject of a machlokes of 7 different people. So L'gabe that the Gemara had to speak out the Hilchas Karava. When it comes to Havdalah, there's some interesting things we learn about Havdalah. The first thing you need to know about Havdalah is Rav Tzadok HaKohen asks, why is Havdalah such a simcha? If anything, it's a letdown. We're leaving Shabbos. The teretz is Komi She'im B'das Eini Yachal Havdal. We know that the Havdalah is totally in das, the intellect to separate from Kodesh L'choil. That's why we say the Havdalah atachanantanu in the bracha of atachanin ladam das. So the simcha is that we're zoichet havdas. And it's interesting, in the brachas of Havdalah, we're working from the bottom and moving up to the top. The first bracha we normally make is bar priyagofen, which is our mouth, which we drink the wine. The next bracha we make is bar mina besamim, which is our nose, that we smell the besamim. And then the third bracha is bar marinesh, which we see with our eyes. And then the bracha of amadal bekodesh achol, which represents our moyach, our intellect, to be able to make that distinction. Rav Huna bar Yehuda came to the home of Rava. Aishu lekamayu, he came for Havdalah. They brought in front of him oru besamim. Baruch Rava besamim bereisha. Rava made the bracha bar mina besamim first, just like we do. Vader Amar. Amar le Rav Huna asked him, V'bein Beishamai uvein Beisil ma'or bereisha. Beishamai and Beisil both agree that you make Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh first. V'hader besamim. And only then do you make a bracha on the besamim. Umahi, where do we see this halacha? That non Beishamai Oimrim. If you had your shalashudas that went past Shabbos, and now you have to bench and you have to make Havdalah. So there, you first make a Borei Ma'orei, then Mazayin, then you bench, then you make a Borei Mina Besamim, and then Havdalah. But regardless, everybody holds, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel both hold that Ner comes before Besamim. Only Rava Basrei, so Rava said, and he said, Zudiv Reb Meir, this brisa that you quoted is Reb Meir's opinion of what the machlokes was between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Al Rabbi Yehuda had a different version of the machlokes. And he said, Beis Shammai Beis Hillel ala mazon shu b'tchila v'al Havdalah shu b'soif. They've all agreed that first you bench and then you make Havdalah. Shammai holds you first make a Borei Ma'orei Eish. We Salaimim B'Samim V'Achach Ma'or. First you make Borei Mina B'Samim like we do. Rabbi Yochanan Nahago Am K'Beis Hillel V'Ali with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan Paskin like we do, and we say first Borei Mina B'Samim and then Borei Ma'orei Eish. Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba Kloilo Bei Rava. Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba came to Rava's house, but not Motzei Shabbos. He came during the day and came for the Suda. Chazir saw the Baruch Borei Priyagofen Akasa Kama. He made Kiddush, a Borei Priyagofen, and he, with that bracha, he ate and he drank wine the entire meal. But after he benched, like we do as well, he made a Borei Priyagofen on the Koshel Birchas HaMazon. What the Baruch Akasa the Birchasa? V'ishti. Amr Lei, so Rabbi Yaakov asked Rava, Lama Lach Kulahai. Why would you make another bracha on the wine after you already made a bracha at the beginning of the Sudan wine? Habarach Lanmar, you already made a bracha Chadazimna at the beginning of the meal. Amar Lei, so Rav answered back, well, Kiavinim be Reish Kalusa, when we used to go and be guests by the Reish Kalusa, Hachavdinin, this is what we did. We made a bracha on every kais of wine. Amar Lei, Tainach be Reish Kalusa, the Hachi Avdinon, the Savik Maisilon, Savik Loi Maisilon. He brought you a kais, you drink it. You don't know if he's going to bring you another kais. So after each kais, in fact, you'll be Masiach Das. So of course you need to make a new bracha. But you know you're going to be having this kais after Birchas Hamazon all along. So you're not Masiach Das. So you should be able to drink the kais of Birchas Hamazon without a new bracha. Amar Lei, so Rabbi responded, and the other Talmid the Rav. I did like the Talmidim of Rav, who actually did like their Rebbe, like Rav. There are Bruna of Rab Chanan, al Talmid the Rav Haviyasa B'Sudasa. They were sitting in a Suda. And who was their shamus? Koyalayu, Rabbi Yebi Saba. Rabbi Yebi Saba was their shamus. But he wasn't only serving them, he was also providing halachic insight, like George often does. Now, of course, Rabbi Yebi Saba was a heilig amoyer. He wasn't a George, but he offered them advice. Amrlei, they told the shamus, they told Rabbi Yebi Saba, Havalon v'nivrach, bring us a kais, we want a bench. So they declared, we want a bench. L'soif Amrlei, Havalon v'lishni. Then they said, you know what? Just bring us more wine. We're not ready to bench. We changed our mind. We want to just have some more wine to drink. But they had already said Havlon and Nevarach, which is a declaration that we're benching and our meal is over. So Amar Lehuda, Shamas told him, Hachi Amar Rav, this is what Rav said, Kividam Ritzu Havlon v'nivrach. Once you already said Havlon and Nevarach, which is the equivalent of nowadays saying Rabbi Sai Nevarech or Rabbi Sai Merbel Benchin, Itzira Lechu Lemishti. You may no longer drink wine without a bracha. My timer, das chisu daitayu, you were Mesiach Das, you clearly severed the connection between your original eating, your Suda, and now you want to end it. Toysus asks, a beautiful kasha. whenever we make Kiddush, we make Havdalah. What do? We make the Boyer Priyagofen before the Kiddush, before the Havdalah. So why, when we bench on the Kois, why do we make the Boyer Priyagofen after the benching? We should make the Boyer Priyagofen right before the benching. So because of this Gemara, Tosfos says, since Rav tells us that Havdalah and the Nevarich was a hard cutoff, if I make the bracha Boyer Priyagofen before Birchas Hamazon, the Birchas Hamazon is going to be a hefsek. And therefore, I have to make my Boyer Priyagofen when I bench on the Kois after Birchas Hamazon. Zok the Gemara. A Meimer Umar Zutra Varavashi have a Yosy Bisuda. A Meimer, Marzutra, and Vashi were sitting in a Suda, and they all did something different. The Koyale Rabacha Ber Derava, and Rabacha Ber Derava was serving them. A Meimer Baruch Al Kol Kasa Vakasa. A Meimer made a bracha on every Kois. Marzutra Baruch Kasa Kama Vakasa Basra. Marzutra did like what Rav does. He drank all of the Koises during the meal based on his original bracha, and only for the Kois of Birchas Hamazon did he make a new bracha. And Rabashi didn't even do that. Baruch Kasakama Vasulei Baruch. He didn't make any other bracha on wine at all. So he didn't make a bracha on the wine after the Birchas Hamazon. Amar Lahu Rabacha Barava. Anan Kaman Navid. I'm very confused. What do you want me to do? Amemer Amar Nimlachana. After each kois I wasn't planning to drink anymore. So every kois that you brought me, I had to make a new bracha on. Marzutra Amar Anodavdi Ketamid de Rav. I did like the Talmidim of Rav, where the whole meal, all the drinking during the meal, I could depend on the original bracha, but not after I said Havdalah in the Baruch. Rav Asher Amar Les Hilchos HaTalmidei de Rav. He says that the Talmidei de Rav are wrong because he's going to show that Rav holds, in fact, that there's not a hefsek. The Yom Tov Shechaliyah is Achar Shabbos. When Yom Tov falls out after Shabbos, like we just discussed, B'amar Rav Yakna. So between the Yayin and the Havdalah, there's Kiddush in between. That's a hefsek. And yet Rav holds you can do that. So too benching is not a hefsek. Zakimar Velohi, that's not a kasha. Hasam Akar Daite Mishti. By benching, when I'm benching, that's taka a hefsek. But hacha, when I'm making Kiddush and Havdalah together, Akar Daite Mishti, I'm not planning to stop. That's not a hefsek. And therefore, it seems from the Talmidei Gemara that we paskin like the Talmidim of Rav, how they understood Rav, and that's when you make the Boyer Priyagofen by Kiddush, you can drink throughout the entire Suda, and after benching, you have to make a new bracha Boyer Priyagofen. Kimod el Abdullah. So Rabbi Yaakov was a guest in Rav's house for Shabbos. So when they came, so we discussed earlier, they had a discussion of, do you make the new bracha after benching? And that's when he brought in Talmidei de Rav. But now, he stayed on after, he didn't go home after the meal, he stayed on until Motzei Shabbos, and by Havdalah time, Kama Shammai va'adlek avuka mishraga. They already had a candle lit, but the Shammos went and lit up an avuka, a big candle, Havdalah candle, from the little candle that was lit. Amalei, lama lach kulahai. Why do you need to light up this big bonfire? Haman cheshraga, you already have a candle lit. Amalei, so Rav answered, I didn't tell the Shammos to do it. Shama midati the nafshekavit. So Rabbi Yaakov said, what do you mean? If he didn't know that this is your will, if you didn't tell this to him, he wouldn't have done that on his own. So Rabbi answered, don't you also agree that it's a mitzvah namuchor to have Havdalah? So it's a little bit unusual what this conversation was. First, like Rabbi denies it, and then he admitted it. So there's one shot in the Rishonim that says that he was l'chadudim also. He wanted to get Rabbi in the conversation. Rabbi wanted to get Rabbi Yaakov in the conversation, but the Mordechai says there was a misunderstanding and a miscommunication between the two of them, because the halacha is that if you already have a shraga lit, you don't have to light up an avuka. If you don't have anything lit, you're supposed to light up an avuka. So Rabbi Yaakov was originally challenging Rava. Why do I need an avuka? Why do I need an avuka here? So Rava's original thought was that he was asking why, after there's already a shraga lit, why did he light up an avuka? Because an avuka wouldn't be necessary. And for that, Rava said, I didn't tell him that the original candle wasn't enough, and he has to light up the avuka. He did that on his own. Rava thought so Rabbi Yaakov thought that what Rava was telling him is that you don't have to light an avuka at all. So he said, what do you mean? He must have heard it from you. And that Rava said, everybody agrees that l'chatchila and avuka is a mitzvah min hamokar. Okay, so this is Rabbi Yaakov was like a challenging guest. Could you imagine you have a guest in your home and every move you make, he attacks you? You try making a bracha on the brachas hamazon, on the wine, and he attacks you for that. Then your shamas lights up a candle, he attacks you for that. And then he finally makes Havdalah, and he said, Ben Yisrael la'amim, Ben Yom HaShvil Sheishim Ma'amasa. 4 Havdalahs he itemized. Again, Rabbi Yaakov said, why do you need to make so many chilukim? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav Hamadlu Ben Kodesh L'Choel Zui Havdalotash or Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Hamadlu Ben Kodesh L'Choel is enough. Amar Lei. So Rabbi answered, I'll tell you why I do this. Anokah severely. I hold like this memory. Amar Rabbi Lazar Amar Oishia Hapoiches. The minimum Havdalah is lo yivchash mi gimel. You have to have 3 Havdalahs. But Moisef, and if you want to go more, lo Yosef al zayin, you go up to 7. Amar Lei. Rabbi Yaakov said that doesn't explain you. Because
what does 3 and what does 7 mean?
Well, 3 is 3 different Havdalahs. Like Mamadlu B'Kodesh Choil is Havdalah number 1. I'm describing a separation. Ben Or L'Choshech, Ben Yisol Amim, Ben Yom HaShvil Sheishim Ma'amaisa.
Okay.
The Rashbam lists off additional ones that would reach the sum of 7, and he lists off. Tosfos lists off the additional ones. Shol Rabbi Ephraim Rabbi Tam, Lama Nagam LaHosav V'Loimer V'Shem Shvidish V'Shem Ma'isa, Kidash Tevdalta. We'll get to that in a second. But we'll put Tosfos aside. Let's finish the Gemara first, and then we'll look at Tosfos. So I'll call upon him. He said it's supposed to be 3 or 7, but you said 4. It's not 3. It's not 7. So you v'amar lo tolsa amar v'lo sheva amar amaloi ivra ben yom hashvi l'sheishim ma'aseh. The 4th item that I listed was not on the list. That's just ma'in chasima. That's just to wrap up the bracha. You always have to throw in something that's ma'in de chasima. V'amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, and I'll show you that there's such a concept, because Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel said, "Amavdil tzarich sheyomer me'ein chasima samech lechasimasai." Before, if it's a longish bracha, before you get to the last Baruch Atah Hashem, Amavdil B'Kodesh L'Choil in this case, you throw in something me'ein chasima, which is ben yom hashvi l'sheishim me'emaisa. Upupim desai Amar, the people from Pumbedisa said, me'ein psichasan samech lechasimasan. Right before you get to the final bracha, you throw in something about the psicha. Now, Hamadlu Ben Kodesh B'Yom HaShvi L'Shishim Me'emaisa is a generic term. It fits very well with the chasima of the bracha, and it fits very well with the psicha of the bracha. But it's not really part of the text, is what Rabbi was saying, and therefore that's not number 4. It's really only 3 that I listed. But if B'Yom HaShvi L'Shishim Me'emaisa satisfies both requirements, psichasan samach l'chasimasan or chasimasan samach l'chasimasai. So what's the difference between these 2 tanayim? My benayu. Said these 2 amayroim. What's the difference? So tomorrow ika benayu yom tov shecholiyah is achar Shabbos. When we make the havdalah of a matzah Shabbos that goes into Yom Tov, that's where the psicha and the chasima are different, and therefore you would have to say something different if you were following the psicha or if you were following the chasima. How do we finish off the bracha of Havdalah on the Matzah Shabbos that goes into Yom Tov? Hamadul ben Kodesh l'Kodesh. So we need to throw in a term. If you hold, you have to be Kenda Chasima, then I have to throw in a term that shows Kedusha and Kedusha. Because up until that point, we were only listing terms of ben Kodesh l'Choel. But since we're ending the bracha ben Kodesh l'Kodesh, we had to throw in a little something that's ben Kodesh l'Kodesh. The Chasimina ben Kodesh l'Kodesh. Man damer mein psichasan, samach l'chasimasan. The mandam who holds it's in the psicha has to be right before the end. Loy boile meimar ben kedusha Shabbos l'kedusha Yom Tov hevdalta, because we're talking about kodesh and choil. But umanda amar me'en chasimasan samach l'chasimasan. But if you hold that you have to mention something at the end of the bracha, that's like the actual bracha itself, which is ben kodesh l'kodesh. Boile meimar ben kedusha Shabbos l'kedusha Yom Tov hevdalta. And Rambam says we say it, but it doesn't mean we're paskening that it has to be men chasimasan. We say it because we want to be yoy to all the shittas. Now, being that Rav David Dayan brought up word of the 7, there's a beautiful Tosfos over here. Shol Rabbi Ephraim is Rabbeinu Tam. Lama nahagu ha'olam lahoshef v'loimer in in the Havdalah, we say Ves Yom Hashvi Misheishes Yemei Hamaisa Kidashta Hivdalta V'Kidashtas Amchi Yisrael B'Kedushasecha. In order to be Yoytze the Me'in de Chasima, all we had to say was Ben Kedushas Shabbos L'Kedushas Yom Tov Hivdalta. But we throw in the whole clause. Why all these extra words? V'Kidashtas Amchi Yisrael B'Kedushasecha. The Ein Zaloy Me'in Psicha V'Loy Me'in Chasima. This is just extra verbiage. Why do we say it? The Heishav Loy, Rabbeinu Tam answered, Heishav Loy, Rabbeinu Tam, Mishum Chibas Hayoim. Since we love the day, we love the Yom Tov, Harichu, we become extra wordy. Kedei Loymar, Pam Achas, Me'ein Zayin Havdolas. So that we can say at least one time, we could say Me'ein Zayin. Normally we only do the 3 Havdolas, but this is an occasion to do the 7 Havdolas. What are the 7 Havdolas? Exactly what David asked. So number 1, Bein Kodesh L'Choil is number 1. Bein Or L'Choshech is number 2. Ben Yisrael Amim is number 3. Ben Yoim Hashvi L'Sheish Me'emais is number 4. Ben Kedushas Shabbos L'Kedushas Yom Tov Hivdalta. And what does that mean? What is the difference between Kedushas Shabbos and Kedushas Yom Tov? It should be Yom Tov Shari Midi Doichel Nefesh, but Shabbos you can't. V'Shem Hashvi M'Sheish Me'emais Kidashta Hainu Chalosh Moed. It's also making a separation between Shabbos and Chol Moed. The Shari Dover Avodu V'Shabbos Aser. Zeh Chalak Shabbos Miyom Tov. V'Avdal Achas. All right, hey, so that's number 5. And then Hivdalta, the Kidashta, is Amcha Yisrael B'Kedushasecha, is actually 2 Havdalos. There's 2 Havdalos. You know why? Because we're Mechalak between the Kanhanim and Levim, between Levim and Yisraelim. So there's the 7 Havdalos. The main Chasima, the main Kodesh LaKodesh. So that's what the 7 would be. So not once a year, but once every so often, when we're making Havdalah, Matzoi Shabbos, going into Yom Tov, we have the extra Havdalah of the 7 items of Havdalah. And with that, we could finish off today's daf. So what I'd like to do, if possible, is I'd like to learn, if whoever wants, nobody has to stay if they don't want to, I want to learn the halachas, habrichas, hatoiv, meitiv, but I want to end, and then I want to start again because I want it recorded under 2 separate shiurim. I don't want it as one big video. So I'm going to sign off, and then I'm going to sign in again.